If you're a golfer who wants to know how far you hit each individual club and understand your yardages more accurately, I'm going to take you through the process that I believe is the best way of collecting. For this video, I'm at Virtually Golf Lincoln, where I'm going to use their GC Quad launch monitor to get accurate ball data to discover how far I actually do hit the ball in relation to how far I think I hit the ball. In recent months, I've got some new golf clubs where I've not been able to collect any data to know the differences between my old and new ones. So I'm going to go for a little bit more detail and see if there's any clear differences. Maybe that might be in flight, that might be in spin, and that gives me an idea of maybe what I'm going to do differently on the course depending on the conditions. I would always advise using a simulator indoors because what we have is a very raw setup, so we don't have external conditions that might influence the ball flight. What I see with a lot of golfers is they'll be collecting club data outdoors, and let's say there's a big right to left wind and they're seeing that ball move quite a lot in the air. Even though we can set the simulator onto normalized, where that will almost be in a neutral setting, the golfer instinctively is trying to change their swing in a reaction to the ball flight. So because it's not a neutral setup, that's where sometimes the data can be impacted. So first and foremost, I'm going to go through my wedges to understand sort of the distances that I have with different swing positions. This is something called a wedge matrix. Not all of you are going to have this or need one, but I would advise collecting something where you have a few different yardages for different swing lengths. So what I mean by this is, the last time I collected data, it was with the same lofty club at a different club. So in theory, we should have similar output. What I always try and do with my pitch shots is I have a swing length that will feel like my left hand or the handle of the club will go to my right pocket. So that'll be my first swing length. So it'll almost be right pocket to right pocket. So you see how it's the same length back and the same length through. I then have a next swing length where it feels like I almost go to like my abs or my belly button as a feel. I then go up to my chest, shoulder, and then a full swing. So I have quite a lot of different yardages, and you don't need that many. But what it helps with, and it's certainly helped my game, is when I'd have a 40-yard shot, instead of me trying to visualize and feel what that 40 yards might be, because when I'm under pressure or when the lie's different, or if there's a bit of wind, for example, that can cause me to be too aggressive, and then I get really fast at the ball, and I cause all kinds of issues with strike and distance. So for me, the last time I recorded the pocket to pocket was a 30-yard carry. So if I go pocket to pocket, and the feeling is just staying consistent with my tempo, the feeling for me is almost like I'm doing basically a putting motion, so there's not really a lot of lower body movement, it's just all through the upper body. If I go pocket to pocket, okay, and I like to play my wedges in really low, so like that one, that probably come out a smidge too low, and we can see there, I didn't strike that great, 20-yard carry, 30 yards total. So if I just do that again, just that feeling, and because I'm not hitting off turf, naturally that can sometimes feel a little bit different. That's a better strike. So 25 yards there. And realistically, I need to hit enough balls to just really calibrate if that yardage is what I anticipate it to be. And what we can see, that the distance is naturally a little bit shorter than what I would expect based on the last club. Now, one of the reasons that can be is because it's a new club, and I must admit my other wedges were probably quite old, the face is naturally going to be softer, so that ball speed will come off a little bit slower than what I'm traditionally used to. And I've hit those last four. If I was on a golf course, I'd be happy with the strike and the solid contact. Ball's rolling out naturally more than it would, but we can see there is I'm more closer to 5 yards less than what I'd be used to, which is interesting to know. So now I do the exact same process with all my other wedges and calculating what are the differences to what I've got written down versus the reality. So now I've got all my data on my wedges, I'm going to move up to more what I'd class as my fuller shots, my irons. With my new irons, I've got a slightly different shaft. And what's important, and this is always important to ask when you get fitted, is are the lofts the same? So I had quite strong lofts on my old irons. These ones are just ping standard, and I believe they're slightly weaker. So what I've noticed on the course is probably I'm hitting each individual iron probably around about 5 yards shorter. Now, what's going to be really interesting for me here is I've noticed on the course that my pitching wedge goes significantly shorter than my old one. and it goes in ratio terms a lot shorter than my 9-iron. So rule of thumb would probably expect 10-yard gapping with each iron. I'm noticing that's inconsistent with the pitching wedge. So what it could tell me is, am I not hitting that properly or as good as I think I am? Or is the loft and the lie angle just a little bit out, which can be normal on new clubs. So I'm just going to hit a normal one like I would on the golf course. So I hit that pretty solid. So 140-yard carry, pitching wedge. So that's exactly what I have been noticing on the courses. So basically around about 140 I've been playing my pitching wedge. So that one's a little bit further. Now for me, my old clubs, I'd play a pitching wedge around about 145 to 148 as a stock because it was a slightly stronger wedge. So I'm hazarding a guess this is a slightly weaker lofted club, which is what I've seen on the course quite a lot. And that causes me issues because my gap wedge, full gap wedge is about 128, 127. And if this becomes then a 140 club, I believe that my 9-iron's going more 160. So we'll measure the 9-iron. This is telling me roughly, if I hit it really well in perfect conditions, I'm getting probably closer to 142, 143. Now the reason that's super important is because if I was on a golf course, we know certainly in the UK, there's not often I'm going to have perfect conditions where I'm hitting a full pitching wedge 145 yards in stock conditions. So this is isolated. I know based on my temperature, based on the lie, based on probably how I'm swinging, etc., that is the absolute max I'd get out of it, and that stock is comfortably below 140. So that's kind of confirmed for me already the differences in yardage. Now I'm going to check my 9-iron and see, again, if that aligns to what I believe. I think this is at least a 160 carry, which is too big a gap between the clubs for what I want, because I'd have some gapping issues, and that's something I'd then need to address with my loft and lies. So that's not a very good shot, very good strike. It'll be interesting to see what the carry is. Yeah, so way down there, so that correlates to what we'd expect. See if we can hit a bit better, cleaner strike. So pretty much just under 160 there. Again, still not a perfect strike. You can see how it's leaking, so that face is open a smidge, so just losing a little bit more distance than I'd like. Again, I'm blocking these a little bit, so what's interesting is I'm thereabouts with the 160. So maybe that gapping isn't as far out as it feels on the golf course, and that just gives you start going off more factual data and maybe a bit more trust on the course, which is the perfect example of why doing these types of sessions are so important. Okay, so all that's done is any doubt I had between my gapping is just confirmed. There's reasons to have slight doubts there, but it's not where I thought it was. So the next club I'll go up to 8-iron, I'll explain a little bit of differences of how we just wouldn't do a full swing and get another yardage with each individual iron. So for me personally, when I do an iron swing, I have just one or two swing feels where I'm just focusing on good quality load, shifting to the lead side, and then cover the ball. I'm doing that at 90% speed just to kind of give me some control. And the most important thing we're looking for is strike, because we're not trying to get max distance, we're trying to get max accuracy. But obviously we don't want to be just tapping the ball, because we still need to get good quality distance with it. So another good thing to look out for is your ball speed, because you can get an idea of how consistently you're striking it and kind of maybe roughly what the ball speed is, and how, because sometimes your ball speed might be good, but you're over spinning the ball. That can be an equipment issue, that can be a launch issue. So it gives you an idea maybe into your swing factors without looking at swing initially. So for me, another 8-iron. It's a nice swing. So 123 ball and 170 carry. So again, that carry, I would always play an 8-iron as a 170 carry in stock conditions. So that correlates already with really where I'm looking. So these yardages are pretty close. That pitching wedge is just better than I was expecting, in all honesty. So what I do, they're my full swings, but then I have another swing where we all know that if we're in between yardages, we don't want to hit a hard one, spin it up, especially if you're into wind, but we just want to hit one a little bit flighted down that don't carry as far. All I do for that, some people like swinging more 3/4, some people like swinging slower. That neither has worked for me. What I like to do, because I'm quite a power player, I like to shift and really use the ground, is I feel like I just stay on my left side, stay on my lead side, so I don't get a big turn off the ball. And then in order for me to be able to control the face, I feel like I really turn and open my chest. So some would say that's almost like a long pitch shot, and that lowers the flight, lowers the launch, and takes a bit of distance off. So if I can do that with every iron, that automatically gives me 2 different yardages with each club without getting too technical. So let's just give that a go, see how much difference that is. So straight away, ball speed's down by about 5 miles an hour, and carry is down by about 5 yards. So that's exactly what I'm expecting on the course. Maybe actually a little bit shorter. I did hit that very well and a little bit pulled and a bit left, so that might be why. Let's just try another one. That was probably more a reaction, so a bit blocky, a little bit out of it. But you can see carry goes way down. Ball speed on average is significantly down. So that's pretty much a 9-iron for me. But it's a very different 9-iron, because what I'm doing is I'm a bit more in control of a full 9-iron swing, but I'm lowering that launch. And lowering that launch in wind can really make a big difference into terms of how I control it. It's also not a shot I use loads because I'm still working it out. But through the bag, we can see roughly I'm probably losing anywhere between 5 and 8 yards of carry, which is a really good number to work to. And I'm going to do that through the rest of my irons. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to move on to a couple of longer irons. Okay, so now moving on to a 4-iron. Now, the reason I'm going to look at 4-iron is because I also have a 3-iron, but that's a driving iron. So that gap can be quite a bit different. So with the 4-iron, I'm not really playing that low one, that the sort of hot staying on my left side. I'm not going to play that shot very often. This 4-iron for me, the distance I hit it, I would expect it to be all carry, long par 4s, even some par 5s. So in my mind, I'm playing this at about 125, which I believe on the golf course is correlated to what I've seen. Let's see if that matches up. Getting a little bit pushy, getting a few of them today. I think sometimes for me with a sim, I'm actually someone who actually on the golf course is more left-sided than right-sided. So it just shows you environment makes a big difference. And that's why yardages, you cannot take 100% accurate. So that's about 210. That's a little bit short. Again, 215. So these, straight away, this yardage looks a lot lower than what I've been seeing. I look at ball speed, 143, good ball speed, but at the same time, I'd still expect that ball speed to be a little bit higher. So wonder why that's showing up as it is. That's a better strike, ball speed up a little bit. Carry, that's the highest one, so 220. So we're getting closer to that 225 yardage. And I think that probably proves if I've really hit it well, a bit more committed, I'm probably around 220 to 225. So I'm quite happy with that, total 230 with a carry. Now, if I go to my driving iron, the thing with the driving iron is obviously, yes, I will hit it off the floor if I have to, but this is predominantly for a club. This is a tee shot golf club for me. Now, I have no idea how far this actually goes full stop because it is quite strong. I've hit it off the floor a couple of times and struggled with it. So it'll be interesting to see what this shows up. Now, in theory, 4-iron, if we're saying, let's just call that a 220 club, this really should be going 235 in the air. I'm not convinced that's quite accurate to what I've probably seen. Yeah, so straight away, 243, and I've blocked that. So off the floor, I've got 243 carry, 152 ball speed. So it's quite a hot club. The gap in between a 4-iron and a 3-iron, realistically, in my bag, is not very good. So I've hit that very strong, 155, 250 carry. You know, so look at the distance. This is off the floor. So for me, there's quite a big gap there. Now, I'm okay with that because the reality is how many holes am I going in where if you're 240, 250 yards away, anything on or around the green is still a great shot. So the precision's not that important at that end of the bag. What's interesting, we'll try this with a off the tee. So if I went to the tee where I'd hit this naturally higher, I would imagine I'd get more carry if I hit them as strong as those. And this is what, even in soft, not even warm conditions, I've seen some big hits with this club. So let's just see how much difference that is, or whether it's quite similar. Okay, so I've completely mishit that, fully off the toe, and you can see ball speed, everything's right down. But what's interesting is you can see how far that's still gone with a total mishit. So interestingly, not actually getting any more carry out of it, which is great for me to know, because when I'm on the golf course, I've not got that teed up maybe as high as I probably could, but when I'm on the golf course, I like to tee up this club a little bit more to get a bit more launch out of it. So if I tee that up slightly more and maybe go a bit more launch, just to see if that changes anything. And straight away, we're not seeing any difference. Ball speed similar, carry borderline a little bit shorter. So that's quite interesting for me to know straight away, because I've actually felt on the course, if I've hit this off the floor, I've felt like it's quite difficult, it's too hot. But the reality is I can probably do the same with it off a low tee, off the floor, high tee. There's not a great deal of difference. So one thing I must add, which is brilliant at what they've got at Virtual Golf Lincoln, is like a scorecard where you can take note of all your recordings. So the club, the ball speed, the height of the shot, because that's important to, if you're someone who hits the ball very high, and you can compare that against maybe tour data, you might say carry a pitching wedge 140 yards, you might carry 100 yards. It doesn't matter how far the carry is, but if you're someone who's on the high end of ball flight and you're into wind, naturally that pitching wedge is going to go much shorter than someone who hits it lower. And understanding that on course allows you to kind of have a smarter golfing IQ, because you're more likely to give yourself a better chance of hitting the correct shot rather than just the best shot. And then this is a really simple way of just recording that data and not overcomplicating it. So now I'm going to move on to another wood that I've recently got. So I'm not someone I don't like free woods, never have, and Ping did a really, really good job of putting me in like a 2-iron hybrid, took the loft down, gave me a slightly longer shaft, so the ball, I'm almost hitting this really like more like a 4-wood, but the smaller head I really like, and actually this is to date probably been the best club I've ever owned, and it just is brilliant. However, I've no idea how far it goes. It seems to go very long. I don't hit it off the deck because it's very rare that I would need that club, as we can see with a 3-iron. If I can carry it 230 off the floor with, in the summer, upwards of 30 yards rolls, very rarely will I need this. But we'll see what it shows up and we'll go from there. So we'll try it off the deck first. It is slightly fade bias, which I really like, but it might not help these blocks today. I say it's fade bias, but I've hit it off the toe there and hit a low draw. But for me, hitting that off the floor is quite a hard club. So yeah, ball speed's matching straight away the perfect 3-iron that I hit. So we know we've got more. Let's try that again, see if we can hit the middle. A little bit low off the face, but again, maybe we'd expect that off the floor. Ball speed up, 255 carry. Pretty good with a sort of miss strike. A little bit of a toe strike again, you can see that by ball speed, but we're still getting the 255, 260 carry. Now for me, you can see straight away, look, roll out, and that's important to understand because it's a little bit of a hotter club, it does release off the face. So if I hit one more, try and get a bit more height on it, get a better strike. Although that's a block, the strike's correct, and that's what I'm looking for a second. Ball speed, 163. I know I could probably get closer to 165 with the right hit. So I look at that and I think, okay, probably closer to a 260 carry in the right conditions, but I'm getting a lot of run out. So it's really, what I've seen on the golf course with this is I don't really need a driver. I'm getting so much distance with this. So if we try that off a tee, because this is quite a low launching club in its design, it should give me a bit more launch. So in theory, you should get a little bit more carry here. Not even, again, not a good strike. And I think this is a good lesson is when you're doing this, obviously if you're doing it through a whole bag, you're hitting a lot of balls, it can become a little bit tiring, you can get a little bit lazy. So I would always recommend when you do this, you could do it maybe odd clubs first, then evens another session, or do the whole bag and do another bag again, see if that correlates. Like don't think one session automatically gives you your yardages, because we know through fatigue, we know how we might be swinging. There's other variables at play that just might mean that those yardages are not strictly 100% accurate, but we're looking for an average as opposed to perfection. Again, and anyone watching this will have a good idea, although this is my favourite club, and you can still see why, I'm not even hitting this good and it's still consistently in play and long, is my ball speed is really dropping straight off, and that's nothing to do with the club, that's completely all me, because I'm not moving as well, and the strike's not as good. So we'll hit one more, and then we'll move on to driver, and we'll look at the overall data. Okay, good miss hit to finish. So the final club in the bag, the driver, let's be honest, this is the one we all want to see. How far do I hit that? I don't really know. I know my club head speed. I would say driver is probably the hardest club in the bag for me to hit in terms of dispersion. A lot of golf courses I do struggle to hit driver on from a course management perspective, and in season this can become a club that can become quite destructive. So as you can see with those, the long driving iron and the hybrid, because I can get, you know, in the right conditions, comfortably 300 yards overall, this is a club that I probably shouldn't use even anywhere near as much as I do. However, I still obviously utilise it when it's soft and in certain conditions, but I have two shots with it. The first shot I have, and this is something I've had to use quite a lot because I needed to add a little bit of spin on and decrease that dispersion, is where I peg the ball down a bit lower. That's probably a smidge high for what I'd want. I grip down on the shaft probably by an inch. I have ball position a little bit further back. So that helps me just get on top of it a bit more, and in simple terms, almost squeeze the ball. I still get plenty of flight, plenty of yardage, but that's been my go-to. So let's have a look. 3 shots, let's just see what that comes out as. So a little bit of a low pull. Straight away we can see why I don't hit driver all very often, because that to me as a swing just feels so different to every other club in the bag. I do think there's an element of not having the right driver set up, and it's something I need to work with Ping on and getting a new one. 172 ball speed, lower down, so we're going to be a little bit slower off the face than if it was higher up, because I'm obviously hitting a different part of the driver. Spin, even that spin's quite good, but you can see 290 carry, so even peak height's quite low, and that's what helps me because I'm getting a little bit more spin, so that's helping my dispersion. So there, that's poor shot, but we see the carry numbers, the ball speed, the spins. So that's where I've started to see a change in the grid, and there's more curvature. So there might be a little bit of driver setup, and doing this data definitely helps me understand that. But when you're carrying the ball pegged down comfortably to 300 yards, naturally dispersion is just going to get wider and wider with the exact same club delivery as if I was hitting a 4-iron, for example. Now, if I go to kind of a conventional driver setup where that tee's normal height, and normal height I would say arguably is just above the top of the club. For me, gripping a bit higher up and maybe ball position slightly further forward, and I just go after it, I would expect the dispersion to increase. I would expect potentially the spin to come down, but I would also expect some changes in height and into some overall distance. So let's see what happens. And just like you wouldn't believe, the opposite happened of what we expected. That doesn't mean that's the case, that just means of feels and just club delivery. So we'll try that again, see if it comes out. And this might be showcasing me something that I don't realise. So great to see dispersion get tighter. Trust me, that's something I very rarely see. Ball speed's quite similar, carry's quite similar, spin's quite similar. So straight away, those two, we're seeing no change. Is that just an example of feel and real, or am I just swinging a certain bigger swing, what I feel is a letting it go? And in this type of environment, that's easier to do out on a golf course. Letting it go when you've got trouble left and right becomes a lot harder. So toe strike there, you can see the spin's right down, ball speed's up a little bit, similar type carry, dispersion starts to, too much curvature in the air. So overall, key things there is finishing with driver can sometimes be the worst thing you can do, and that's why I like splitting it up and not just doing the full bag all in one go. It's the most demanding with driver, sometimes the most important numbers. Secondly is it can help show up, is are your clubs fitted for you exactly how you want? So I know already that this driver is not fitted for me, and that's the next thing I need to get fit. And we might see some changes in that data as a result of that. We should hope to. It can also start to show up gapping issues between certain clubs, and sometimes that can be no fault of the golfer's own. That just can be that the loft or the lie angle is out on clubs, and sometimes that's because of the clubs being old. They can get damaged, they can get bent, but also they might just not been set up perfectly as accurate as you think from the word go. A lot of golfers will say, I'm not that good or not that perfect, but that's not how you want to think about it. You want just a consistency where you know that the club will go almost, there's a max distance it can go and a minimum distance it can go, because that's what we're looking for on the golf course, is how do we remove danger, is knowing our min and max front and back yardages. So if you're looking to take your golf to the next level, this is an absolute essential component of that. Make sure you come to somewhere like Virtually Golf in Lincoln, using the simulator. I recommend indoors. Do it over numerous sessions, take your time and get clear understanding on what your carries, distances are, as well as other ball data. And if you're watching this video, I'd hazard a guess you're a golfer that could likely early extend, as it's the most common movement pattern in all of amateur golfers. If you want to understand more about that and how you can improve it, make sure to watch this video next.